Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to the show, Indestructible Soul. I have some special in studio guests. Let me get this working right. All right. Welcome back, everyone. This is the podcast, Indestructible Soul. And the platform is mental wellness for African American men and boys. And we're continuing our series on fatherhood. So, the first week, one of the things I wanted to do was dispel the myth that there are not Black fathers in the home. And so one of the things that we talked about was the statistical data that show that there are more Black fathers in the home that there is not. And so we have perpetuated that myth and that lie throughout generations. And the fact of the matter is Black fathers have gotten a bum rap, right? And in fact, I remember raising my daughters when people would find out that not only was I in the home, but I was raising my daughters. Somehow I got accolades that I was something special. But the fact of the matter is, there's more Black fathers in the home that there is not. And then also one of the things, the first part of this series, we wanted to talk about, or one of the things I talked about is not only are we in the families, but as Black fathers, we are more active in our kids' lives. And then part two of the series, one of the things that we went over was the things that a son needs from his father, right? And I talked about 6 different things, and I don't remember them all off the top of my head. But one of the things that came up or that we talked about was that not only do they need guidance, they need the father to be there. They need the father to show love, show discipline through love, not out of punishment. A son needs his father to show him that he's able to make mistakes and come back from those mistakes and not be punished into the sense where they don't know that they can come back from those mistakes. So they need to see that their father is human and, guidance and all those things. So today we're going to continue to move forward. And I have a group of men that I know very well. Get Francisco to not hide from his mic. And we're going to have a very intimate topic and a very intimate discussion on fatherhood in general. And so I have a distinguished group of guests with me, and I'm going to introduce them from my right to the left. And then I'm going to let them talk a little bit about what fatherhood means to them, who was their fatherly influence, so forth, and whatever it is, and what's their ideology when it comes to fatherhood. And then we're going to get into some real in-depth conversation. So to my right, I have I don't know, what are you to me? I can't say, you can't say son-in-law, but you're my grandson's father. Yeah. So I guess you're my son. Yeah. I'll claim you as my son. We could do that. We could do that right here on the air. Right here. You my son. Yeah. And he is my grandson Punchy's father. Then I have Monte Stone. He's my cousin by marriage, but we cousins. And then I have a long-term, lifelong friend, family friend, and this is Reverend Shelby. So I've been knowing Shelby. I don't know how long we've been knowing each other. Or our families.
Well, you talking about some days of Jack, and you go way back. You talking about
right. So I'm 48.
That's little league baseball, man.
So I'm 48. I would say you probably came around when I was 9 or 10. So it's 30 plus years, no? Is right there 30 years?
Yeah. That's
okay. Right. So the Beauregard and the Lee family go way back. We're talking back to tumbleweeds. Wow. So okay. Yeah. So we're going to have a really in-depth discussion, and we may not get to everything tonight, which is okay. But I wanted to talk about fatherhood, and I didn't think I could do it all by myself. And fatherhood means something different to each one of us. We all come from different experiences, and everyone here sitting at the table have children, and you could talk about, your children, how many kids you have. So I'm going to just give you each one a minute to kind of talk about real quickly who was your fatherly influence. If it was your dad, that's fine. And also, what I want to know is what does fatherhood mean to you? And we could get into some of it. We'll start with Francisco. So just go ahead for a minute and you got the floor.
So I don't know if I haven't maybe told you, but my girlfriend's 12 weeks pregnant, so I got 1.5 kids right now.
Okay, congrats.
Thanks. And so we're starting from the first question with me, or I'm introducing myself.
Who are you, and
Well,
what was your fatherly influence?
My name is Francisco. I'm originally from Miami, born in Hialeah Gardens. Hopefully, some of my family's watching on Facebook, so they're all they're hitting me up. So I was born in Miami, and my fatherly influence it came from my Hispanic side, my dad, and he was I would say that he was a good influence for me. You know, I learned all my hard work, like my best characteristics come from him, like my hard work, and yeah, I would definitely say the hard work.
Okay. So when you talk about your work ethic, that was probably one of his biggest influences on you?
Oh man, for sure. I would have to say for me, just because of like as a young age, I watched him do a lot of different things in the house. Like he was so we fixed the washing machine. He'd do electrical, like he would do things like clean up behind him. Like we was really our relationship was really hands-on with a lot of things.
Okay.
And it really helped me kind of like I take the job and I got to finish it all the time. So that was, and we used to wash our cars together, and go out on the fish, go out on the boat, doing the boat things together. That's a lot of work too.
Okay.
So it consisted with a lot of work, but us getting it done. So that's really like where my father kind of had the biggest impact on me is my work ethic. Because I right now I do a different kind of work. I'm in the water business. I service water softeners. I work 10 to 12 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like it's not easy, man. And I give that up from him. I get it from him to be able to get that push every day.
I appreciate that. So, Mr. Monte, talk about it.
My name is Monte Stone. Originally from Martinsville, Virginia. I'm here in Southern California by way of the military, where I met my wife. I have 3 kids, two girls, 1 boy, 20, 18, and 14. I'm sorry, 12.
They're going to get you for that.
They're going to get me? They'll be all right. I'm bad with math. My fatherly influences, experiences, my takeaways. They say it takes a village to raise a child.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go with that concept. My actual father, I do know, but I haven't seen him in a while. So as far as him being in my life, I can't really say too much on that. But my takeaways for what I have experienced growing up, as far as looking at father figures, I get from my grandfather,
Mm-hmm.
a couple of my uncles, great uncles, and I kind of look at them with high regard.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody's perfect, so I take all the positives that they bring to the table as far as taking care of their families and how they raise their children. They've been influential in my life.
Okay, we appreciate that, Mr. Reverend Shelby. So your fatherly influence. Also talk about your ministry and how long you've been in the ministry.
My name is Reverend Shelby Roberts. I'm a member of Living Faithful Gospel Church. I've been an assistant pastor there for some time. Born in the city of Merced, raised in Pasadena, California. James Madison Elementary School, McKinley Junior High, and on to Blair High. My mother was actually 15 or 16 years old. I was the first child. And there never was a father around. I don't know what happened to the father, but he is on the birth certificate, as far as I know. But what happened to him, I have no clue. It was religious leaders, spiritual leaders, pastors of local churches, ministers I knew personally that took me in as a young man and mentored me on the greatest impact influence I had on what fatherhood was all about. It was from the spiritual perspective, from watching ministers of the gospel who work, provide for the family, led, and provided spirituality for their family, where my greatest impact came from what it means to be a father, as well as what it means to be a man from that perspective. And so fatherhood basically means to me taking accountability, providing for your family, most of all providing both spiritual and emotional support for that family, and being a person that family members that your family can come to no matter what's going on. And also making bad decisions. Sometimes the decisions we have fathers make are not good ones.
I believe that.
And one important thing is, as father, when we do make a bad decision, take responsibility for the decision that you have made and don't blame others for your own bad decisions.
Right.
So just take responsibility as a man. And so I learned that from spiritual leaders, ministers of the gospel. By the grace of God, they were sent into my life and took me in as their son and kind of mentored me into that, what I think real fatherhood is all about.
Okay. So I'm your host, and you guys on the show, you've heard me talk about my father and my fatherly influence. So I come from a family where my father was not in the home. My father was a lifelong drug addict, rest his soul, in and out of prison. And so I credit my mother, my grandmother, and for context, my step grandfather as, my parents. Jack, he did what he can do as a father figure. And then it was my mother and my grandmother. So as we got older, or as I got older, and we come into this thing called fatherhood.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing I want to ask is, when we talk about fatherhood, and anybody can ask this question, what prepared you for it? So when we talk about this, the sense of some of us, if not all of us, well, Francisco, you had your dad, Monte had influences, you had other influences. It was my mother for the most part, and my grandmother. But what prepared you for fatherhood? So whoever wants to jump in.
I'll jump in first. I wasn't ready. I'm gonna be honest. Like I remember, no, like serious. Like I remember being scared. I remember, like, I mean, I had to be the bad guy. I talked to Janae about the option of, like, do we get an abortion? Like we actually had a conversation about it because I was scared, man. You know what I mean? Like I would talk to people around me, and it wasn't really positive feedback. Like it was really dark. It was a really grim time. I mean, but the reality is that for me, that was the best thing that ever happened to me.
Right.
But to be quite frank and straight up on it, I was not ready. Was not. And not only that, I mean, think of the transition from Florida, Miami to San Bernardino. I mean, let's think about, and just like you gotta
What do you
remember,
mean? That's an upgrade.
like, well, I mean, and specific to my situation, right? I was working at Miami Beach. I was working at the Fontainebleau, Miami Beach. I was bougie. I didn't have to wash my own dishes. In my line of work, I had worked from the age of 15 to about 21 in this industry, making a name for myself, and finally breaking in and working at a place. And then all of a sudden, I'm reading a book about Marcus Samuelson, and that in his life, he didn't even step into his kid's life till he was 3 years old. And I'm like, no, not me.
Right.
And I said, I'm gonna take the jump. And I was living at your house, and where was I working? I was working at the food court at San Manuel.
So for you, what about for you, Monty? How was that when we talk about fatherhood? What prepared you for it?
I said what prepared me was just how I grew up. I grew up helping raise my brothers and sisters, being I've changed their diapers, helping my mom out, getting them ready for school and things like that. So, I mean, a transition going into being a father was kind of easy for me, as far as, like, helping out, for, feeding, changing diapers, just being there for your kid when they're infants. But as they grew older, I kind of interjected myself more because I want to be there. They're my kids.
Right.
I don't want to.
But I think what
around.
Francisco said is a real thing. And a lot of times, especially as young fathers and or young men, we're trying to find our way. We're trying to play and all those things. And then boom, here we are, we're having a kid.
Right.
And are we ready? Do we know we're ready? Are we scared? Do we want to? So some of us want to be fathers, but what happens when no one prepares you for it? Because it doesn't come with a handbook.
No. I mean, if I had guidance along the way, I could say, it took a little bit from James Evans Jr. and Bill Cosby on the way.
No.
But those are just TV dads. But a lot of things you see, you kind of just pick up on.
I can agree with that.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm a freshman at Long Beach State. I just started playing football scholarship, and I'm literally in my first year, and here's how I found out I was going to be a father. And I'm going to school, go to class, and they had answer machines back then. We didn't have cell phones. And I get back to my room, and boom, there's a message saying, I'm pregnant, you're going to be a dad. First year in college.
Wow. Yeah.
So now I have a decision to make, right? And the thing is, abortion was never a discussion, but okay, now how do I do this? How do I go and continue my football career for one? How do I stay in school and still be able to become a new father? So I was 19 and some change when I had my first daughter, but it was not an option for me to quit. But luckily I had support that allowed me to be able to stay in school and all these other things. But here I am trying to, at this time, still have a dream of going into the NFL. What was I ready? I don't know. Yeah. What prepared you, Shelby?
Well, I didn't get married till around age 30. I got married, and I came into a blended family where I had two sons already, Brian and LeBaron.
Which adds a whole nother dynamic.
Yeah, whole different dynamic for blended family. I didn't have my son, Christian. He was the youngest that was born, which is biologically mine. But when I came into the family, my sons, they took a little while. What I noticed as I began to deal with them and get involved with their lives, they started calling me dad. I didn't ask for that.
That's powerful.
I didn't ask for that. I didn't require them to say that. It came automatically. From that point, I learned that respect is earned.
Okay, talk about it.
Respect is very earned. I used to watch ministers. As I said, I was kind of raised by pastors and ministers. I would tuck into their homes. I used to eat breakfast with their family, kind of raised with their kids. I was kind of probably like part of their family. And I watch how these religious, spiritual leaders take care of their family. They went to work, provided for them, cared for them, sit down, listen to the problem. I watch a minister put makeup on with his daughter.
Right.
So I've just seen those things. And I said, Lord, if I ever become a father, everything that my father was not, I'm going to try to be the opposite of that.
Right.
To provide.
And
that kind of motivated me right there.
What's crazy, because what motivated me was when I knew I had kids, my motivation was to not be like my dad.
Yeah. For some reason, we took the negative
and made it
a positive. That's a real strong sign of resilience for black males.
Right.
We can take negative things. You can give us lemon, we make lemonade.
All I knew, whether I had money or not, all I knew is when they needed me to be there, I knew I was going to be there. That was my motivation.
My motivation was I'll never leave my child.
Right.
I'm going to be there for whatever the case is, whatever the situation, I'm going to be there. And I from these ministers, I took what I've learned from them, the application of what I learned, and tried to apply it to my life.
Right.
A lot of things I didn't know what to do as a father.
Right.
I mean, no one comes in fatherhood automatically knowing what to do. It's experience that teaches us.
Has anybody here, and this is let's get naked. Has anybody here ever thought about not being there? No. Anybody at this table?
Well, I mean, let's be real. How many times did I go back and forth? You know what I mean? How many times did I give up? You know what I mean? That first time.
Right. So I'm gonna tell this story, and I don't care if you get mad at me or not, because just like I said, not being there was not an option. It just wasn't. So whether or not me and the kid's mother was going to be together or not, me not being there was not going to be an option.
Right.
So Francisco's living at the house, and I'm, you know, my show was real. And him and Janae got into an argument. I don't know what they were fighting about. And he up and left and was gone for the night. It took every inch of willpower for me not to punch him in the face.
Yeah.
But I got in his chest and I said, look, dude, one thing you will not do is leave.
Right.
I don't care if him and Janae is going to be together. That's not my business. But when you walk out on your son. That's not going to be allowed. Right. And so my thing is, because we have blended families and the families are what they are today, it kills me for fathers. I know there's a lot of fathers out there who want to be a part of it, but they have been, like we talked about, they've been taken away from the family. But those who do it willingly, I don't know if I have any patience for that. Yeah. What do you think, Monte? Go on and say it. But I remember I got in Francisco's chest and I said, dude, whatever you do, you don't walk out.
Right. I can agree with telling them not to walk out. And I don't think I'd ever walk out on my kids. Being there is very important, especially to be a role model for them, particularly for my girls, because I want them to show them, you know, this is the type of man you should marry, the one that I'm portraying to be.
Right.
I don't want them to fall into some knucklehead who's not going anywhere, doing the wrong things. I don't want them to see that.
Right.
So I walk a different lifestyle, so to speak. So what I try to emulate is the more, I guess, more positive sense of a black man.
Well, I think you're saying you're a role model for your daughters, because you're right. They need to know what a husband and a man and a provider and all that stuff should look like.
Right.
Because I think that's a perfect way to put it.
Yeah. And if I have a disagreement with my wife, then something that we discuss behind closed doors, I rarely raise my voice. If I do, I'm really upset. But I don't do that in front of them, you know. And if I do get mad at my wife in front of them, I'm not going to raise my voice. I just address what I need to address, and we'll just talk about it. So
let's shift a little bit, because we got a lot to talk about. We might not get it tonight, and that's okay. The role of the father in the family. I hypothesize that the role of the father in the family, the role of the man in the family, because of today's age. Now, granted, women have had to go to work. We talk about equal rights and all that stuff. But I think one of the reasons why this family struggles so much is because the black father has lost his position in the family. And there's a constant battle when we talk about raising kids, running the household, who's going to lead, who's going to follow, whatever it may be. So I think we've lost control of the family. What do you guys think?
I think so.
What do you think, Shelby?
I think the black male has in some cases been emancipated. He's been kind of immaculated. I mean, he's been kind of cut off from his role.
Okay.
What I mean by that is that we were designed to be leaders.
Right.
The black male in the family was designed to be a leader. He was created to be a leader. He was designed to be a leader. He was designed to make decisions. He was designed to take authority of his family, designed to provide for them. When we as black males kind of give that position up, we, in a sense, I don't say been taken, but almost like we give it up.
We've given it up.
And because we're giving it up, the woman has to take on things that she has to do to provide and take care. It's hard to respect a man, or hard to respect a black male if he's laying around the house watching Ricky Lake all day.
Playing video games.
Yeah, video games. Won't get up, won't work, won't do anything. Then you expect the people in the household to call you a father.
Right.
Well, if you do the things that are fatherly and do the things that requires you to be a father,
Mm-hmm.
then I think you will have more of a respectful position in your home.
Right.
But if I sit back just lackadaisical, like a overcooked noodle with no backbone,
Right.
Won't take the position of a fatherhood, your wife keeps trying to throw you the ball and you won't take it.
Okay. Talk about it.
That that what cuts us off as black males.
Right.
You see, when people look to you to make a decision, you can't make one.
So are you saying some men want that power and that position, but they don't earn it?
Yeah, exactly. They
Okay.
want to be called that. They want to be called father, but they don't earn the respect of being called a father.
Got it.
And so it's hard if you don't put in time. If I don't put in time with my children, time with my wife, with my family, doing the things that are right, doing the things that should be done,
Mm-hmm.
it is hard for them to have respect for me as a father.
Okay.
And I tell young ladies all the time, I don't care how much you love a person, I love a man.
Mm-hmm.
If you have no respect for him, don't marry him.
Right.
It's difficult to call someone father when they have not earned that title.
Right.
So we as black males, we have to step up to the plate. If we don't step up to the plate, that woman will.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what's your thoughts on it, Monte?
That's an issue.
What's your thoughts?
I agree. I think as a black male, my role is to be that authoritative figure in the family. But being in a household and with these times with working parents, we share responsibilities.
Okay.
So overall, rearing your children, chastising them, helping them out with homework or getting them to and from activities. It's a team. It's, me and my wife, we're a team. So we work together, but there are times where, decisions need to be made. I'll make a decision. All right. It may not be.
Well, here's a question. So when you make the decision, how do you guys compromise and agree upon that, or not? How does that work?
If I make the decision, it's where we're going, what we're doing, or it's I think it through first. It's not about what I want to do; it's what I want the family to do.
Okay.
So I'll look at it from that perspective. I'm not really selfish about my time with my family. So if we're gonna do things together, and granted, if you didn't plan it, then you're looking at me to make the decision. Then I'll give you my 2 cents. And if you don't want to go with it, then I'll say we'll do this.
Okay.
But if we sit down together and we hash it out, okay, it's a joint decision. But as a head figure being in the family, I like to be the one that my kids look to for some direction. And they can, some fathers don't have a relationship with their kids where, they're scared to go to their dads because they're, get the shit beat out of them. Sorry, my language. Or they don't want that negative comment that's going to come towards them.
Okay.
I'm not like that with my kids. My kids, I'm an open book. They can come to me and talk to me about anything they want. If they want to talk to me, they can talk with their mom. I have girls, so when they hit that age and things start happening with their bodies, my wife was out on a business trip and things started going on. So talk to my daughter about feminine hygiene and what's going on.
So in terms of when we talk about fatherhood,
right,
and your role in the family, if you were to summarize that, or if you were to idealize that, what would that look like for you?
I'd say being a father that's going to be there for them, and putting their needs first. I'm going to provide for them. I'm going to, take care of them. I'm going to protect them, in short.
Okay. So let's turn a different corner real quick. So Shelby, what, from a biblical principle, and one of the things I often talk about is we've gotten away from God's design, right? And most people are scared to say it. Most people are scared to talk about it from not being politically, so they don't want to be politically correct. And here we are, we're this progressive society. But I believe God designed woman a certain way, God designed man a certain way. But when we talk about what was God's order for the man in the family, or what was God's order in terms of fatherhood, can you talk about that for a minute?
Well, I'll take you back to the creation, Genesis 2:25. Actually, Genesis 2:20 through 25. The Bible said that at the 24-hour period, Adam had named every beast of the field. So Adam was a genius individual. He named, and he had no dead presidents, no historical concepts, no history books. He named every beast of the field.
Right.
Now, for the first time, God said, "It is not good for man to be alone. Therefore, I will make him a helpmeet."
Right.
The Hebrew word for helpmeet is ezer, a counterpart that fits. So Adam went into a deep sleep, and he took from Adam a rib, and from that rib he made a woman.
Right.
Now, not all of the troubles, but some of the troubles of the world come from Adam's rib. Can you imagine if every man had his right woman, every woman had her right man, there'd be no more wars.
Right.
Women would be walking around causing trouble, and men would be looking for trouble.
Right.
And so here we have a fact that from Adam looked at her and said, "Now this is bone of my bones, flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, because otherwise she should be called Isha, because she is taken out of Ish, taken out of man."
Right.
Now, when God created man, he made Adam first.
Okay.
Gave him dominion over the fowls of the air, the beasts of the field. He made Adam first. And so this concept of Adam being made first is a concept of authority. The biblical perspective of father is that the father is to be the leader of his home. He is to provide for them spiritual need, provide for them emotional needs, to provide for them physically. He is designed by God to take an aggressive role.
Right.
What I mean by an aggressive role, man was designed to be an initiator. He was never designed to be a responder.
Okay.
We were designed to be an initiator. The woman, no matter how smart she is, she plays a passive role. What I mean by a passive role is that she has a strong maternal instinct that takes over her judgment on a lot of things.
Okay.
Where Adam, in a sense, he has a built-in authority system that God gave him. It's in him.
Right.
By nature, we are aggressive. We are initiators. We just by nature is our instinct. So God made us to be leaders in our own families.
So pause there, and I do want you to continue. Do you think because of roles have gotten switched, and regardless who's at fault, because like you said, we've given up that leadership role.
Yes.
Do you think that's why so many families struggle?
Big time. Because when God came to the garden, he didn't ask for Eve. He didn't ask for the serpent. He said, "Where's Adam? Is there a man in the house? I want to talk to him first." I didn't tell you, don't want to talk to his wife. It's funny how when people call on the job, they have their wife to call the boss so they're not coming to work. So it's just funny how that we as men, we step back from our responsibility and they force that woman to take your role.
Right. So here's where I struggle, because I agree. If you look at a family off balance, I say look to the man.
Yeah, that's where it starts from.
I say look to the man. If the man's not right, then the family's going to be off balance. For black men, and we could talk about this too, and I really do want you to continue, but for black men, we can't take all of the blame.
Right.
And here's what I mean by that, because I think we've been systematically removed from the family.
Yes.
And I talked about it before. So, and here's the thing. I'm saying for us as black men, we have multiple things working against us, whether it's racism, whether it's how we were systematically removed from the family. Then our own communities have perpetuated that, deadbeat dad thing. So we got that working against us. And then now, for those of us who want the role and want the position in the family, we got to struggle in the home.
Well, I agree. There are tremendous forces against the black male. I was born in 1960 and came up through the 60s as a young man, young child through the 60s. And I observed one thing, and during the 60s, I've noted that even and it's sad how the government in the United States has systematically designed this thing.
Right.
I've noticed that they will give a black woman a job faster than they will give the black male. They'll hire a woman quickly. Now, it's something when the United States government or racism, whatever the case may be, told that black male that you're nothing. We done told you you're nothing.
Right.
But it's really tragic when that black woman told that black man he's nothing.
Ouch.
So now I got a question.
Okay.
So that becomes an issue.
The thing is
Talking to your mic.
Oh, my bad. So, but what about trade?
What do you mean?
Why aren't more black men getting into trade?
Well, I'm just
because that's the question I have. Because in my industry, in the water industry, I don't work with any black men.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like I work with. It's not to say that black men aren't getting into trade, but why? But where did the welding go? Where the electricians go? You know what I mean? Infrastructure is very important in California. And during the shutdown,
But
you know what I mean? Infrastructure has still continued to be built. Why isn't
well, I can understand even the economic principle of why black males are not in more in business. Matter of fact, I'm trying to understand why they're not more into entrepreneurial pursuits. What gets me is that the black male systematically has been totally from day one been disoriented to life.
Right.
Most black men come from homes where there's no father, so they never saw industrial labor, industrial work. Some black men had no concept what work is, what it means to get up and go get a job and provide for your family and to be consistent and faithful with that job. That is something that had to be taught you. As you said, you watch your father do things around the house, electrician, you watch him do it. And from that work ethic, you learn the work ethic, you learn the principle that when you start something, you complete it.
Right.
Well, that's very fortunate for you because there's a lot of black males who were raised by black mothers and the welfare system who would never have that concept.
Right.
So they become disoriented when it comes to like life and providing and working. No one ever taught them that a man should be independent and provide for himself.
Right.
And for his family. They were never taught that. So therefore they get up with no concept of motivation about, I need to get a trade. I need to learn a job. I need to pursue something.
And what I see mostly now is because of exactly what you're saying. A lot of our men have lost their sense of resiliency.
Yeah.
And on one case we're getting beat down. Another case we're being coddled. So when it comes to having to do hard work or having to pay dues and things like that, I see a lot of men struggle with it.
Yeah.
And then I also see because women by necessity have had to take the lead role that some men fall back.
Yeah.
And they don't want that role. And you're right. When we talk about not being able to see that work ethic and not being able to understand that, things don't come easy.
Yeah.
And I think when we talk about, why aren't they getting into trades? Why aren't they doing these other things? Because so much of what we see and so much of what we hear is counterproductive to that.
Yeah.
So understanding that most of us are going to be laborers or have a trade. Not all of us are going to go to college. Not all of us are going to go to be rich. But what happens is we tell this story, we tell this narrative, you got to be X, Y, and Z, or you're not a man, or you're not this. So therefore, we don't even talk about trade. We don't even talk about getting a skill. Because when I say get an education, it doesn't necessarily mean go to college. It means get a skill. It means,
because the average black male I've met, particularly at the time I was coming in Pasadena, and they've said, well, I need money, man. So they got into selling drugs. They got into crime, joining gangs, stealing and taking money. They were never taught the principles of a work ethic. That was never inbred. For example, and I'm not trying to sound racist here, but some of the most richest races of people on the earth are Jews and Japanese.
Right.
They're the most prosperous race on the earth. The reason why, because from childhood, they were taught the principles and the concept of what prosperity is.
And work ethic.
Yeah, and work ethics. And and I tell folks, black males think that because we have things, because you have a lot of things, don't mean you're prosperous.
Right.
You can lose things in 24 hours.
Right.
But prosperity is something that has to be taught you. From a childhood, I watched them. They were taught the A, B's, and C's of prosperity.
Right.
They know what the value of a dollar is.
Right.
You give the black child a dollar, a black male a dollar, he's going to go buy candy with it. You give of another athlete race $1, say we're going to save this dollar until I get another $1.
Right.
So they're taught the principles.
We talk about generational wealth, and
they're talking about
like
the A, B's, and C's of prosperity.
Right.
We had work ethic. As a matter of fact, my wife was working with my grandson. She was telling him that you have to get a work ethic. My grandmother instilled in me a work ethic.
Right.
My brothers thought I was lazy. He said, he just soft. He just going to be a little preacher. He ain't going to do nothing. The first job I got, I stood on that job for 21 years, picking concrete tile and cement bags every day for 20 years. Same job. So what I'm saying is a work ethic has to be taught that black male.
Right.
He has to be taught him. And it has to come from a fatherly figure. Of a male figure in the house is, hey, a man gets up and he works. He's independent. A man gets up and he takes care of his family. If that black male is not taught that, he actually becomes a female.
Uh-oh.
He actually lays around. He switched roles to the woman. He is now the passive, and she's now become the aggressor.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Okay. So I appreciate that. In any other context on terms of the biblical role before we turn pages?
Well, the father according to the biblical role is basically one word: accountability.
Okay.
Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the patriarchal fathers of the Old Testament, they were accountable to God and accountable to their families. Accountability was the key word of being what it means to be a father, and to have enough wisdom to hear from God to instruct your family.
Right.
That was the biblical concept. And being the leader, the priest of your family.
Okay.
You are the spiritual example. As you said before, if a man is bad, the whole thing is bad.
Absolutely.
The whole thing is bad. It's a tragedy. And in most cases, you can get over a bad father. You can really get over one.
Yeah.
But I know we're not talking about motherhood, but it is difficult. It's hard to get over a bad mother because she's more nourishing and more caring. But the father is a very important role. And most black males who are missing fathers in their life, they're missing something very major in life.
Right.
A father, we have to see what a father is. So that's biblical perspective. Hear from God, being the priest of your family, and accountability.
So, and Monte, I think I want to hear from you on this. So, I theorize because me and you both grew up without fathers, but I think we're pretty good fathers. Would you agree?
I agree.
Okay. Is my mic still working? I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
It works.
So, one of the things I think as men, as we get older, Shelby's right in the sense of growing up without a father, something's missing. I was in denial of that for years because I felt like I was good enough. Mm-hmm. My mom and my grandma did good enough. And it wasn't until I was well in my 40s, like things may have been different if I had a responsible dad.
Oh, yeah.
So I want you to talk about that. But the other piece I really want you to talk about is I also believe that if fatherhood is taken away, that also takes a part of who we are because we're meant to be that. And I'm not getting into the, people will say, well, what about the LBGT? I think part of who we are to be providers, teachers, and all that other stuff. Can you talk about that for a minute?
Well, being a provider and a teacher. Let's go back. I'll say this. Not having a father figure around, had I had one consistently, I probably would have made different decisions in life. I would have had an ear to lean on, someone to hear me out.
I definitely would have made different decisions. But
and definitely,
amen.
Someone to say, okay, well, hey, what do you think about this? I'm thinking about doing this.
Right.
Didn't really have that, so I relied mainly on my peers,
mm-hmm.
Or some of my elders that were around me. But if I had that influence,
right.
Shoot, like you probably could have been in NFL or something.
Who
knows?
You know what I think? If I would have had a responsible dad, I think I would have had less of a temper growing up.
Oh,
yeah.
But go ahead.
Yeah.
I think we've probably all have been more emotionally stable.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
go ahead, continue.
Definitely. I wouldn't have waited so long to go to school. I was probably my mid-30s when I finished college.
Right.
If I'd had that direction or just given a little structure early on, probably would have finished it sooner
Mm-hmm.
and done something different.
Okay.
But definitely, I'd say that would have been a big influence for me. But I think I've rebounded from that by just taking from those that were around me and using their guidance and direction to direct me where I needed to be.
So I appreciate that. So Francisco, you're the young buck on the team. You're the rookie on the team. So here's a question. I know for me, when I was a young father, still in college, I had to grow up and I had to mature. So what was, the partying, the making decisions was no longer about me no more. So my question for you is, how has fatherhood matured you? How has fatherhood changed your direction or your insight?
Well, first, it definitely comes to the people that are around me. So my best friend Juan, he was around your age, 19, when he had his first kid. So that was somebody who I leaned on to kind of bounce my ideas back and forth. So really, how did I prepare myself? It was more kind of the people around me. And
Well, how did it mature you? How did it change?
mature?
How did it change your insight?
So I just
Or
think,
did it?
well, it's not that it didn't. It's just that it demanded a different person. It demanded a different level of me. So as I reached around the people, like I was saying, like the people around me, it helped mold me become different. I mean, I'm not the same person. I mean, year to year, I'm not the same person. You know what I
Right.
mean? Even now, as my son gets older, like I understand, I'm starting to understand the different things that he needs from me. So and that demands a different person.
Right.
So I just think the necessity of the situation is what changed me. It's when you come into the situation, you have no other choice. There's no
Well,
other.
you always have choice.
I mean, yeah, no, but as a father, like you were saying earlier, you know what I mean. You have that innate that instinct inside of you that will lead, or that's going to take you to the right path.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because you're like kind of just kind of trying to get my thoughts together.
The thing is, here's my criticism, especially for young fathers. And I'm not saying I did everything right as a young father and I stopped partying, but I made better decisions because I had to think about my kids.
Yeah. Made you a better person.
I realized I couldn't spend the money the way maybe I would have because I now had kids.
Right.
And so it definitely forces you to mature and even change how you see things. At least that's in my opinion. I don't know. So how did it change for you? Or did it?
I'd say it made me a better person, more conscious of my responsibilities, the things I needed to do. Being a father, where I didn't become a father until I was like 28, so I kind of lived my life, so I was ready when the time came.
Mm-hmm.
But it made me focus a little more on this family for my household, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. So I think in terms of when we talk about fatherhood, Francisco said it was scary for him. It was scary for me. And especially where I was at, like I said, I'm 19 and a half when I had my first kid. So no playbook. There's nobody taught you how to do it. We learn from, whether it's our mothers, whether it was, other men that we've seen. So the question is, as a father, what do you draw wisdom and strength from? Shelby.
My decision making as a minister of the gospel, it all comes from the Bible. I feel that Bible doctrine contains all the answer to any problem of life. Uh, I love the book of Proverbs when Solomon say, "Hear, my son, the instructions of your father." Although David had committed adultery with Bathsheba, and Bathsheba became Solomon's mother, after 25 years, they became both spiritual people and they instructed their children. All my answers, especially when I'm dealing with something that I don't know the answer to, comes from the Word of God. And I feel that the more I'm familiar with the Word of God, the more I have knowledge of it, the best ability I have to make decisions. I got to the point now in life that I don't rely on my own understanding about things.
Okay.
And raising three boys with a host of grandchildren, I've noticed that it matured me in one sense that I had some false concepts of life. Uh, Particularly with my sons, I come to life with some false concepts. For example, I've seen so many fathers with this macho image,
Mm-hmm.
and they try to force this macho image on their son, and they destroy their children.
Right.
You may have a son who is sensitive and smart, and you're gonna force a macho image upon him. And I tell my boys all the time, because you got muscles, don't mean you're manly.
Uh-oh.
All right, because you speak out the corner of your mouth, don't mean you're a man.
Right.
And so most decisions I make, I try to make it from a biblical perspective. My whole life been almost like based on the Bible here. And I'm not saying I'm a perfect person.
Mhm.
I have sinned, I've done things, but I feel if I can make a decision based on the Bible, I can't go wrong because God himself make decisions based on his own word.
Right.
So I make decisions from the experiences of the Bible and from experience of fathers that I've known and watched.
Mm-hmm.
I get into a situation that, what would my fellow pastor done? What would my fellow minister done I grew up with?
Right.
What would the Lord think about this? So those things run through my head all the time when I'm coming to make decisions. I've learned not to rely upon my own understanding about things. But sometimes you can think something is right because you're a father and because you head the family, just the way I like it. That's how it's going to be.
Right.
No.
Right.
You could be wrong.
My
about
way or
things.
the highway.
Yeah.
What about for you, Monte?
Question again?
Where do you gain your wisdom and your insight as a father? Because you are leading the family.
I kind of draw from my relatives. They kind of help rear me a little bit. You know, I grew up in the Bible Belt back east, so having those church values growing up kind of molds you. So it gives you a little direction in life, but it doesn't complete you. You still gotta find your way, and you're not always gonna have all the answers, but there are people you can look to that have done it, or even ask them, or lean on them. Sometimes they give you some direction.
Right.
So if I ever find myself in a position where I go into something I'm not familiar with, I might pick up the phone and call somebody just to say, "Hey, what do you think about this?"
Absolutely.
And give them my thoughts on how I would handle the situation, and look to see if they would, if I'm on track, or if I need, or if they direct me somewhere else. But yeah, you try to make the best decision that's best to, as a father figure, you know, what advice am I going to pass on to my child that it's going to help them grow?
Right.
I don't want my kids to get caught up in, negative connotations or anything like that. I want them to grow and be free thinkers for themselves, but I also want them to do the right things.
Absolutely. Francisco, for you, in terms of where do you find your insight and your guidance as a father?
Where do I find my insight and guidance as a father? I have a lot of my past experiences. I share a lot with people with my confidants. So my best friend, we kick back ideas.
Okay.
So that's some of the insights that I get. Really, those are the two things that I kind of hang on to the most. I mean, and also my own mistakes as well. Like, because I've made mistakes, and I just try to learn from them and just try to I just try to do the best I can, and that's really the best we can do.
Yes.
It's just you know I reach out, I reach out to people who are I think are a little bit smarter than I am, and just kind of try to pick their mind a little bit.
Right.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's really my philosophy.
Well, they do got a book, Fatherhood for Dummies. And I mean, I've read it, but it still doesn't show you what.
So last question. Generationally, we were taught certain things. We could talk about whoopings.
No.
We were talking about, in my opinion, we use shame to discipline, tell a kid they're bad, these things that we done traditionally.
Bribery.
Bribery, spankings. What is something, and this will be our last question before we wrap it up. What is something that you intentionally did differently to become more of a progressive or better father that you were taught? Because the whoopings and the saying, because I said so, that's how we were taught, and that's not always our kids are brighter and smarter. So being able to communicate and have conversations. So what is something differently that you've done that you were kind of taught generationally that you actively decided to change in your family?
So for me, I'll jump in on that one, because I definitely whoopings. I used to get my ass handed to me, and I don't know if I can curse or not, but like I'm gonna be honest.
Go for it.
You know what I mean? Like I used to get my ass handed to me with the belt, and that's just like it's not the way that, because at some certain point I started to let it affect my social life, where I would much rather deal with the social like the people around me. I'd rather deal with the social consequences than the negative consequences of me getting my ass whipped when I got home.
Got it.
Like that's how bad it got. And I think that it didn't help me out. If anything, it was like more like I was in school worried, making sure that I didn't do anything wrong, because if it got back home,
woo, and in my opinion, that breaks a kid's spirit. That's just my opinion. What was it for you?
I'd have to agree. It's probably some whoopings in there. Whoopings as opposed to beatings. It's a different story, different person. But I think for me, the change would have been just that right there. I'd rather sit down and talk to my kids about what they did wrong, and have them think about what they did and how to make the better choice.
Right. Okay. What about for you, Shelby?
Well, my grandmother was more of a disciplinarian than anybody I know. According to John Dewey, I don't know if he was a philosopher or a psychologist, he says if you spank a child, it destroys his personality. Well, I don't buy that nonsense, because I have received many whoopings and it done nothing to destroy my personality. Matter of fact, some spanking, some whooping made me a better person. Now, what I'm saying is, it's not always just good just to whoop a child and, okay, I just whoop you, now go sit down. But if you spank that child, you better also turn around and hug him too, reaffirm him.
Right.
And I have no problem with spanking a child. I have no problem with whooping a child, but I do have a problem with parents not instructing them why.
Right.
Well, they're being spanked, because there are times when we just got whooped.
Right.
You get a whooping. Well, you get to a point where whooping no longer threaten us.
Right.
I mean, you can whoop me fine. You made a point. Whooping don't mean nothing to us now. But the issue is instructing that child. I most now speak to my children. I kind of speak to them. Right. And just by me talking to them, being real with them and being honest with them, is more effective than me just hitting them on the backside.
Right.
So sometimes discipline comes in many forms, but discipline must come by teaching. Now, I got children. I got 3 boys. Now I can yell. Barrett is kind of quiet, and I can kind of deal with him. But Brian, has his father and mother. You can kind of, if Brian knows that his parents are upset with him, that just messes this whole thing up.
Right.
I can just yell at him. Now, my youngest son, Chris, you can't bluff him with a whooping. You have to go get him. Right. Whooping him, man, he ain't said nothing. So the various personalities of different children that we deal with, on where you have to disciplinary them and chastise them. My wife is mostly disciplinarian in my home. But if you push me to a point, I get you to, I'll unload on you if you push me to a certain point.
Right.
But whoopings now is fine once in a while to spank a child. But make sure that even in the discipline that you instruct. I got a whooping one time before I went to church. My grandmother whooped me. I don't know why people call it spankings, but it's kind of, I got whooped before I went to church. Then when she got there, she got on her knees and started praying.
Right.
Now I'm saying, how in the world are you going to whoop me and call Jesus too? That's what I'm thinking. That's in my mind. You can whoop me and then call on the Lord. But I've learned that even when my mother's mad, she still prays, still calls on Christ. She's still instructing. So discipline is fine. Spanking a child, I believe children, some children need spanking. But with the spanking, make sure you hug him and instruct him why. Right. Just don't spank him and say, now go sit down.
So for me, it was listening.
Yeah.
I don't think parents oftentimes listen to their kids. And especially if they have an opinion that we disagree with, because we're the parent, I don't think we listen. So for me, it was, even if I didn't like what they were saying, I need to listen. Yeah. So that's something different for me.
Yeah, that's a little different.
Right. So as we wrap this up, we're a little bit over time. Any final thoughts? Any final comments?
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me out.
Yeah, same here.
Appreciate it. So I want to thank you guys for coming on. I really appreciate it. And we're going to have to do this again. For those of you who see on camera, this is my grandson, Punchy. So I want to thank you guys for joining me. This has been Indestructible Soul, our series on fatherhood. And as you can see, we have 3 different generational fathers. We have Francisco, who's a young father. He's still in his 20s. Me and Monte are the same age, and he has 3 children, 2 girls and a boy. I have 2 daughters. And we have Reverend Shelby, the OG, the elder statesman in the room, who has 3 boys. And so we want to thank you. I want to thank each and every one of you for your insight and for coming on the show, and I greatly appreciate it. So this has been Indestructible Souls, Mental Wellness for African-American Men and Boys. And check us out next week as we complete our series on fatherhood. So thank you very much, and good night. We're out of here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good. Yeah.
Focus.
I just forgot that if the other people were listening, I just thought I'm just in here.